I gotta make field notes. Episode 3 of the Sketchbook Club review. Today, we are going through Group 5. David, Gled, G. Hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Jasmine, Kim, Lillia, and Sam. Let's jump into it. First up, we're going to be going through David's sketches. David, right off the bat, dude, gnarly sketch. This is ridiculous. You've got really good line weight in this sketch, which is good to see. You have a good accuracy of your viewpoint. Nothing is too distorted or skewed in your perspective. You have a good amount of detail in here as well. Such a small object, you've managed to include a lot of the actual product's detail in it, which is really good to see. And it's also really cool to see the evolution of your sketch, how you started off breaking it down into pretty rough-ish form, and then you've gone through those steps. You've got a really loose one, a bit tighter, and then you've got the tightest sketch right down at the bottom. Super cool. I will ask you a question though. How long did this sketch take you? Maybe you're spending a bit too much time on it. That's an important thing to realize, that as a designer, or one of your key assets is being able to sketch and produce concepts and content very quickly. It doesn't mean you're rushing, but it means you're able to communicate the same amount of information and the same type of information, same amount of detail, quicker. What I mean by sketching quickly is being able to communicate the same amount of information in just a faster format. So I can imagine you going through and you doing this sketch kind of like this. And as you can see, it's just painstakingly slow. Don't be afraid to sketch something quick. You can really easily rough out a form like that. It may not be as technically accurate, but we're in the field of communicating ideas and communicating emotion through sketching. You can kind of take that and express it in just a more dynamic way. Don't be afraid to add more line weight either. More line weight can never be a bad thing. And obviously speed comes with time. You're not going to be able to sketch something super fast right off the bat. Believe me, I do understand that. I feel like it is an important practice to get yourself into, to not get too bogged down in sketching slowly and hyper accurate. So David, thank you very much for this gnarly, awesome, badass sketch. It looks really, really good. Keep it up, and yeah, just keep going. On to the next one. Gled. I really hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You've done some shoe sketches. This is the sketch that I picked to go over today because I love doing shoes. I can see you've done some kind of an Adidas shoe and some other shoe here. They're good as a very beginner level type sketch. For a first year, it's where you probably should be at this point in time. However, there's simple, effective ways that you can do to take this thing further. A couple things that I do like: you've chosen very simple viewpoints, which for shoes can never be a bad thing. You have two different types of running shoe sketches, and you've started to attempt the detailing in them, such as in the laces or in the loops at the back. The one thing that I will say about them is that they look a little static on the page, and what that means is there's not a lot of kinetic movement. And if you think about a shoe, it's always in motion. If it's a running shoe, you know, it's zooming along the road or whatever. And shoes are one of those things where they're kind of like cars. When you sketch cars, it's important to make it look dynamic and interesting. Pull up some car sketches here. They don't look like they're just sitting on the page, you know, they've got a bit of a mean stance to them. Very simply mimicking the viewpoint that you've chosen here. I like that you've started off constructing a square plane, but when I sketch shoes in this way, where it's more of a product point of sale viewpoint, I start off with a rectangular base. That's the important part, and I'll show you what I do here. This may help you just add a bit more dynamic form and dynamic interest to your sketch. I start off at the back with a very simple rectangular form. Now what I do here is I'm going to bring this out just a touch more, again making sure I'm following my vanishing points. Just add a bit of extra room. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to taper that in on that side there, and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm not going to keep it symmetrical, because if you look at the human foot, split it right down the middle, the human foot is not perfectly symmetrical, right? Got this little outline down at the bottom there, and what I may do here, just quickly, is find my center and just sketch a bit of an ellipse in there. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start connecting these points. So when you break it down, very crudely, I've roughed out a very initial primitive shoe sketch here. But from within that, I can then start to add more detail. How the contouring is going to work. I can add tongue for the shoe, really quickly add the heel, and this will kind of help guide you and your perspective. And we'll say, okay, let's maybe bring in 3 Adidas stripes here. It's an easy way to break down a shoe into simple forms that's going to make it easier to sketch. Another easy thing to do a really quick blocked out side view of it, and effectively if you look at a shoe, it's a triangle and a square in its simplest, most basic form. So Gled, thank you so much for your sketch. And keep doing shoes. Shoes are really, really fun. So thank you so much. On to the next one. Jasmine, cool. Jasmine, you've chosen to sketch based off what I can see on my computer. Pencil in hand. Good variation of views. You got 3 views on one page, which is good to see. You've also balanced this out pretty well, so props to you on that. Also good work in varying your line weight. I can see the variation in line weight. You've got heavy line weight on the bottom in some areas. You've got lighter line weight on the top, which is really cool to see. One thing that I'm gonna critique in this sketch in particular is the overall cleanliness of the composition on the page. But the way that I would treat the border on the page is to be as clean as possible. That means the corners meet up at a perfect 90 degrees. For the letters in your title, they should all be the same height. And kind of a cool hack that I learned is to type out your title, print it off on a sheet of paper, trace over the letters. 2 things. In the top hand sketch, the pencil looks a little bit curved. And if you look at it very closely, there's 6 fingers. But in any case, I'm going to bust out a sketch that I did the other day, a couple of cars, and I'm going to show you how I would treat the border on this because I think it's a very important thing to get in the habit of and to treat clean. I'm going to make use of this little guy here. This is a non-photo blue pencil. If you're photocopying, the blue will just completely disappear. I want the corner to kind of sit behind the vehicle here. I'm going to bring it out. I'm also making sure that the border is going to intersect with a large surface. I'm not going right near any corners or cracks where it looks like the line could be just coming out of the vehicle. Okay, let's say if I drop it down here, where's it going to meet? It's going to meet about right there. I'm doing this in light blue pencil so that if I make a border that I don't like, I can really easily change it. The front wheels of this vehicle kind of sitting outside of this grounding box. What I like to make practice of is always making sure that there is a bit of asymmetry in the composition of the page. I figured out where I like my lines and where I want my lines to go, and I'm going to go towards the sketch. Same thing here. Now I'm going to be very careful not to get little hairy bits that go around the corner. I'm going to make sure that it meets up as clean as possible and goes right up to my other sketch. Okay, properly just finishing the sketch, completing the grounding box. And if you really want to be next level, as I started doing this in 2nd year studio with Odin, is creating a secondary grounding box behind, which this is completely unnecessary, but what it does is it gives you the opportunity to just add a higher level of detail to the sketch. And maybe if you're doing this in your sketchbook, using markers is totally cool. Talk with Catherine first just to get her opinion on it. That's what I would do. It adds a more finished level of quality to the overall sketch. So Jasmine, thank you very much for the sketch that you've done. Really cool to see that you're doing this. Detail in your composition and detail in your layout of the page. Thank you so much. On to the next one. Next up we have Kim, and we also have Lillia. Now Kim and Lillia, you've both, I'm lumping you two in together because you've both done a similar sketch, and the comments and feedback that I'm going to have is pretty much the same for both of you. First off, Kim, really good work with the fine detail of these glasses. Really good detail, especially working around the arms here because they are so thin, and also a good effort at rendering the transparent part of the glass using the techniques that Catherine has mentioned in the last couple weeks. One thing that I'm going to say though is glasses are not vertical, they're not perfectly flat. Even in these ones, you can see a bit of a curve. They don't just lie flat on your face. You know, your face is also not flat. There's curves to it. So I'm going to say that, and then also more line weight. Lillia, good work with the perspective as well. Good work with your line weight, but again, we can add more line weight to this. Lastly, Lillia, I'm going to say the same thing. The glasses are not perfectly flat, okay? So I'm going to show you how I would break these down So start off very simply, project a rectangular frame. Okay, that is going to be the very front of our glasses. I'm going to bring it back a bit, follow the vanishing point. So I'll say about there for now. The best way to draw a curved surface along such a big plane, imagine this is like a top view of this plane, and we pick a point here, here, here. We also need to pick a center point as a tangent arc type thing. And basically how we're going to do this is we're going to break it down like that. So it means we need 1, 2, 3 reference points. So loosely guesstimating here, picking those 2 points, project it perfectly across. Now find the center here, and we're going to bring this down 3 reference lines and 3 different points of contact. We can sketch curve. Now this curve may be a little bit exaggerated, but we're just going to roll with it. The center point of the glasses is where you will find the nose piece, this little bridge guy right here, it flowing down. Now, let's do a really quick front view up at the top here. Boom, that's it, that's all we're going to do. So let's add a bit of thickness. You're also going to need to think about the thickness of the frames themselves, right? It means those are going to go back to the vanishing point. Now, this is a very quick, very crude example here. When I was in first year, Reese actually did a really good demo of a pair of ski goggles. Reese has been around for a while, but I'm gonna, for the sake of this, I'm gonna add a little bit of line weight just to help with the clarity of the sketch. And now, just for the sake of it, we'll add a bit of that detail to indicate to our viewers that yes, this is transparent, but it's the act of the construction of this sketch that's the important part. That should be the key takeaway, is how to construct and build this seemingly flat object on a curved plane. So Kim and Lillia, I hope that helps. I hope that sheds a bit of light on how to take your sketches of glasses, but of things in general, to the next level. So thank you so much, and on to the next one. All right, now we've got Sam. Whoa, rear 3/4 of an Adidas shoe. Right off the bat, good perspective and accuracy. It's cool to see that you've put the lines on the front of the shoe just to illustrate that it's some type of a fabric. I think the lines are a little bit dark though. Lighten those up just a little bit, and it's really good that you're doing this large on a page. You know, I can tell this probably takes up a bulk of the 9x12 footprint that you have. So again, really good to see that you're doing that. That's a really, really good thing. Now you can probably guess what I'm going to say already, but line weight. It looks very static and very, dare I say it, boring on the page. There's no repetition of line, there's no dynamic interest. And that's the same thing, especially what I said with the glasses before. Glasses need line weight to help distinguish the surfaces, but also to help show that it's a curved item. And you can do the same thing with your shoe here. Contour lines are also another good thing, especially with detail in the sole. So I'm going to try and replicate the view that you've picked here. What I'm going to do here is just really loosely rough out the shoe sketch that you've done, just so that I can show you how I would put line weight on a sketch in this particular viewpoint. Lip here, and we've got a contour at the back, appears to cut in on our shoe. I'm going to add more line weight and details to these features here in a minute. What I'm doing right now is just really roughing in a lot of the basic construction that I'm then going to further flesh out through the sketch. Now, my sketch is not in the exact same viewpoint as yours, but I think you'll get the idea. Really quickly, let's add a bit of line weight to this. Okay, just like that, there's already a bit more dynamic line weight and a bit more contrast than what you have in your sketch. So it's a simple and effective way to do this. Now I'm going to work on the contouring along the heel here. And right here, this is going to give us some super simple areas to add some really nice contour to our sketch, right? I've said it before, I've said it a lot, line weight is super, super important. Just with the line weight that I have pictured here, it's already dynamic and more just more interesting to look at as opposed to something where everything has all the same line weight. Don't be afraid to go dark with the pen. Experiment, try things out with line weight. It is something you have to practice. So Sam, thank you very much for the sketch. It looks super gnarly. It can look gnarlier. Just practice line weight, make it interesting. Again, now look at what other people and look at how other people are sketching shoes. Thank you so much. Remember, keep using line weight. Use some contour lines to help just define the forms that you've got, and keep going. Ladies and gentlemen, first year students of industrial design, that brings us to a close for episode 3 of the Sketchbook Club. Thank you for all the work that you've done and the work that you've been doing in the last couple weeks. It's shown a lot of improvement. I'm glad to see that you guys are putting in a lot of effort. And again, I say this every week, but collaborate with your peers, collaborate with other students in your class. It's ultimately going to make your sketching and you as a designer yourself, it's going to make you stronger. See you next week for episode 4.